The transport ship shuddered as it dropped out of hyperspace. Through the small window, Commander Una Park watched the massive space station grow larger against the star field. Nexus Prime Academy looked like a crystal flower floating in the void. Its towers twisted upward in impossible spirals that could only exist in zero gravity. Una pressed her face closer to the glass. She had seen pictures of the academy, but nothing prepared her for its actual size. The station was bigger than most Earth cities. Ships from dozens of different worlds moved around it like busy insects. "First time seeing the academy?" asked the pilot. He was a Veltari with blue skin that looked like frosted glass. His voice sounded like wind chimes when he spoke. "Yes," Una replied. "It's bigger than I expected." The pilot laughed. The sound reminded her of breaking ice. "Wait until you see inside. The academy has training facilities that can create any environment in the galaxy. Some say it has rooms that exist in 17 different dimensions at once." Una nodded but said nothing. She had read about the academy's advanced training systems. Room-sized computers that could create perfect battle simulations. Gravity fields that could be adjusted to match any planet. Neural implants that let students download combat skills directly into their brains. All very impressive, all very different from how humans learn to fight. The docking process took 20 minutes. Una gathered her single bag and made her way to the exit. The other passengers were all aliens heading to various parts of the station. Most were much taller than her. Some had extra arms or legs. Others floated instead of walking. A few stared at her as she passed. Humans were still rare in this part of the galaxy. Most aliens had heard of Earth, but few had ever seen a human in person. The docking bay was enormous. Ships of every design imaginable filled the space. Una saw vessels that looked like living creatures next to others made of pure crystal. The air smelled of ozone and exotic fuels. "Commander Park?" A voice called out behind her. Una turned to see a tall figure approaching. It had 4 arms and gray skin covered in small scales. Its face was roughly humanoid but with larger eyes and no visible nose. "I am Professor Kellen," it said. "I was sent to escort you to the faculty meeting." "Thank you," Una replied. She followed the alien through a series of corridors that seemed to stretch forever. The walls were made of some material that shifted color as they walked past. Other beings moved through the hallways. Una saw creatures made of what looked like living metal, walking next to beings that appeared to be made of colored gas. Students and faculty from across the known galaxy all gathered in one place. "How long have you been at the academy?" Una asked her guide. 15 years, Kellen replied. "I teach advanced tactical systems. My specialty is coordinating multi-species combat units using quantum communication networks." "That sounds complex." "All modern warfare is complex, Commander. Gone are the days when battles were won through simple physical violence. Today's conflicts require understanding of dimensional physics, quantum mechanics, and psychic resonance fields." Una nodded politely. She had heard similar speeches before. Every advanced civilization seemed convinced that warfare had evolved beyond the need for basic combat skills. They reached a large chamber filled with the strangest collection of beings Una had ever seen. The faculty lounge looked like a meeting of gods from different mythologies. Creatures of crystal sat next to beings made of pure energy. Others floated in spheres of liquid, while some existed as geometric shapes that hurt to look at directly. "Everyone," Kellen announced. "This is Commander Una Park from Earth. She will be joining our faculty as an instructor in basic combat training." The room fell silent. Dozens of alien eyes turned toward her. Una felt like a child who had wandered into an adult meeting. A being that looked like a walking diamond approached her. Its voice was like the sound of wind through caves. "I am Dean Torval. Welcome to Nexus Prime Academy." "Thank you for having me," Una replied. "We are curious about your teaching methods," the dean continued. "Earth's military systems are not well known in this sector. Perhaps you could tell us about your approach to combat instruction." Una looked around the room. Every alien was watching her with interest. Some looked genuinely curious. Others seemed amused. "My methods are fairly simple," she began. "Physical conditioning forms the foundation. Students learn to fight without technology first. Hand-to-hand combat, basic weapons, survival skills, mental toughness and adaptability are just as important as tactics. A murmur went through the room. Several aliens exchanged glances that somehow managed to look condescending despite their inhuman faces. "How interesting," said a creature with too many arms. "Physical combat. How very traditional." Another being that looked like a floating brain in a jar spoke up. "Commander Park, surely you realize that modern warfare has moved beyond such primitive approaches. Our students master combat through neural programming and dimensional mathematics. Mental enhancement allows our cadets to process battlefield information at light speed," added another voice from somewhere in the crowd. "Physical training seems rather inefficient by comparison." Yuna smiled. She had expected this reaction. "Physical training teaches lessons that cannot be programmed into the mind. Pain tolerance, the ability to function under extreme stress, how to improvise when all your technology fails." "Technology does not fail at this level," said Dean Torvald gently. "Our systems have redundancies beyond your comprehension. Perhaps you might consider adapting your methods to meet galactic standards." "What exactly are galactic standards?" Yuna asked. Kellen gestured toward a wall that suddenly became transparent, showing a training room beyond. Inside, cadets from various species fought holographic enemies while floating in zero gravity. Energy weapons fired beams of colored light while force fields deflected incoming attacks. "Combat simulation using quantum processors," Kellen explained. "Students can experience 1,000 battles in the time it would take to complete one physical exercise. They master weapons that can destroy planets and learn to coordinate attacks across multiple dimensions simultaneously." Yuna watched the display for a moment. The students moved with perfect precision. Their attacks were mathematically precise. Every movement had been calculated for maximum efficiency. It was also completely predictable. "Very impressive," she said, finally. "Your first class begins tomorrow," Dean Torvald said. "We have assigned you 20 of our finest cadets. They represent the elite of their respective species. I look forward to meeting them. One more thing," the dean added. "Your training facility is in Section C7. It contains our most basic equipment. We thought it would be appropriate given your traditional methods." Several aliens made sounds that might have been laughter. "That will be perfect," Yuna said. The meeting ended a few minutes later. As the faculty dispersed, Yuna heard whispered conversations in dozens of alien languages. She caught enough words to understand the general meaning. The new human instructor was primitive. Her methods were outdated. Her class would be easy. Yuna smiled to herself as she found her way to her quarters. She had heard the same things before. Every advanced civilization made the same mistake. They assumed that newer meant better, that complex meant superior. Tomorrow, she would begin teaching the elite cadets of the galaxy, students who had mastered every advanced combat system known to science, students who had never learned to fight dirty, students who had never faced an enemy that refused to follow the rules, students who were about to discover why humanity had earned its place among the stars not through superior technology, but through superior stubbornness. Yuna unpacked her single bag and prepared for the next day. In a few hours, she would meet the finest young warriors in the galaxy. She could hardly wait. Yuna arrived at Section C7 30 minutes before her first class. The training facility was exactly what she had expected after yesterday's faculty meeting. Basic was putting it kindly. The room was large but empty. Gray walls stretched up to a ceiling 20 feet high. The floor was covered in simple rubber matting. Along one wall sat racks of primitive equipment. Pull-up bars, weights made of actual metal, rope climbing stations, and obstacle courses that looked like they belonged in a museum. There were no hologram projectors, no gravity manipulators, no neural interface ports, just space, equipment, and whatever the students brought with them. Perfect. Yuna walked around the room, testing the equipment. Everything was solid and functional. The weights were heavy. The ropes were thick and rough. The obstacle course looked challenging even by Earth standards. She smiled. This was exactly the kind of environment where human training methods worked best. At exactly 0800 hours, her students began to arrive. The first through the door were two identical beings with 4 arms each and skin the color of polished stone. They moved with fluid grace, their multiple limbs coordinating perfectly. Yuna recognized them as Kethrun from their files, the twins Veltar and Morcus, both ranked in the top 5% of their class. Behind them came a shifting column of colored energy that hurt to look at directly. Quindar, the Lixmoran. According to his file, he existed as pure consciousness and could process information faster than most computers. A massive figure filled the doorway next. Theclon stood nearly 8 feet tall with muscles that looked carved from granite. His people, the Drexnari, were legendary warriors whose strength could crush steel with their bare hands. Other students followed. A young Veltari female named Kira, whose crystalline skin sparkled in the light. A Drexnari female called Zexara, who moved with deadly grace despite her size. More aliens from species Yuna had only read about in files. 20 students in total, the elite of their respective worlds, all staring at the primitive training facility with expressions that ranged from confusion to barely hidden amusement. "Welcome," Yuna said when the last student arrived. "I am Commander Park. For the next semester, I will be teaching you basic combat fundamentals." Veltar, the more talkative of the Kethrun twins, raised one of his 4 hands. "Commander, there appears to be some mistake. Our course schedule says advanced combat theory. This facility lacks any advanced training systems." "There is no mistake," Yuna replied calmly. "We will be focusing on the fundamentals that form the basis of all combat: physical fitness, hand-to-hand fighting, and mental toughness." The energy, being called Quindar, pulsed brighter. When it spoke, its voice sounded like electronic music. "Commander Park, with respect, my species evolved beyond physical form 3 million years ago. Physical fitness has no meaning for beings like myself. Mental toughness can be programmed through neural conditioning," added a student whose name tag read Corvin. "Why would we need to develop it through primitive methods?" Yuna walked to the center of the room. "Before we begin training, I want each of you to demonstrate your current combat abilities. Who would like to go first?" The students looked at each other uncertainly. This was not what they had expected from their first class. Veltar stepped forward. "I will demonstrate, Commander." He moved to an open area and began showing his species' natural abilities. His 4 arms moved independently, each performing different combat techniques simultaneously. Then his body became translucent and he walked through a solid wall before reappearing on the other side. "Impressive," Yuna said. Kethrun phasing. Abilities are well documented. Very effective against most weapons. Veltar smiled with obvious pride. "Our people have never lost a war, Commander. Superior evolution makes victory inevitable. Quindar, would you like to show your abilities?" The energy being flowed across the room like liquid light. Where it touched the metal weights, they began to glow and hover in the air. Complex mathematical equations appeared in the air around him, calculating trajectories and force vectors in real time. Lixmoran combat involves controlling matter and energy at the quantum level, Quindar explained. "We can manipulate battlefield conditions to ensure victory before fighting even begins." Other students demonstrated their abilities. Theclon punched a training dummy so hard it flew across the room and embedded itself in the wall. Kira showed how her crystalline body could deflect energy weapons by shifting her molecular structure. Zexara moved with speed that made her almost invisible. Each demonstration was more impressive than the last. These students represented the pinnacle of their species' evolution. They had abilities that seemed like magic compared to human limitations. When the demonstrations ended, the students looked at Yuna expectantly. Several seemed amused, waiting to see what the primitive human instructor could possibly teach them. "Very good," Yuna said. "Now I would like a volunteer to spar with me. Hand-to-hand combat only. No special abilities, no technology, just basic fighting." The room fell silent. Several students exchanged glances that clearly said they thought their instructor had lost her mind. Theclon stepped forward. "I will accept. Your challenge, Commander. Though I must warn you, my people's strength can be dangerous to fragile species. I understand the risk, Yuna replied. Standard sparring rules. First one down stays down. They moved to the center of the room. Thaklon towered over her, his massive frame casting her in shadow. Up close, his muscles looked even more impressive. His arms were thicker than her waist. Are you certain about this, Commander? Thaklon asked. I do not wish to injure you on your first day. I appreciate your concern, Yuna said. Begin when ready. Thaklon nodded and moved forward with surprising speed for his size. His massive fist came down toward Yuna's head with enough force to crush concrete. The punch never connected. Yuna stepped inside his reach and grabbed his wrist with both hands. Using his own momentum against him, she twisted and pulled. Thaklon's balance shifted forward. Before he could correct, Yuna's elbow struck the nerve cluster behind his knee. The giant warrior's leg buckled. As he fell forward, Yuna continued the throwing motion, redirecting his massive weight. Thaklon crashed to the floor with a sound like falling rocks. The entire sequence took less than 3 seconds. The room was completely silent. 20 elite students stared in shock at their instructor standing calmly over the most physically powerful warrior any of them had ever seen. Thaklon groaned and tried to sit up. What happened? How did you do that? Leverage, Yuna replied, helping him to his feet. Your strength means nothing if you cannot apply it effectively. You telegraphed your attack, overcommitted to the strike, and left yourself vulnerable to redirection. But you are so small, Zexara said. Your species has no special abilities. How could you defeat a Drexnari warrior? Humans do have a special ability, Yuna said. We adapt. We learn to win against opponents who are bigger, stronger, and more dangerous than we are. Because on Earth, everything is trying to kill you. Several students shifted uncomfortably. The easy confidence from their earlier demonstrations had evaporated. This was luck, Veltar said, though his voice lacked conviction. Thaklon was not prepared for deception. Would you like to test that theory? Yuna asked. Veltar looked around at his classmates. Several nodded encouragingly. His reputation was at stake now. Very well, he said, moving to the center of the room. But I will not make the same mistake. I will use my phasing ability. As you wish. They faced each other. This time Veltar did not rush forward. He began to circle, his body flickering in and out of solid form. When he attacked, he phased through Yuna's defensive position and materialized behind her with all 4 arms reaching for vital points. Yuna was not there. She had dropped to the floor the moment Veltar began to phase, rolling between his legs as he materialized. Before he could react, she swept his feet and struck the back of his neck with precisely controlled force. Veltar joined Thaklon on the floor. Phasing is predictable, Yuna explained as she helped the stunned alien to his feet. You have to become solid to attack. That creates a window of vulnerability that can be exploited. The classroom was deadly quiet. Students who had arrived, confident in their superiority, now looked uncertain. I think I understand, Quindar said slowly. You are not teaching us to be stronger or faster. You are teaching us to think differently. Correct, Yuna replied. Advanced technology and special abilities are advantages. But advantages can become weaknesses if you depend on them too much. Tomorrow we will begin learning how to fight when everything you rely on fails. As the class ended, students filed out in small groups, talking quietly among themselves. Some looked thoughtful, others appeared frustrated. But 5 students lingered behind, approaching Yuna with obvious curiosity. Commander, Morkes said, I would like to continue with your training. The others nodded agreement. Even after watching their classmates defeated, something about Yuna's methods intrigued them. Good, Yuna said. Class begins at 0800 tomorrow. Bring your minds, not your assumptions. As they left, Yuna began putting equipment away. Tomorrow would be interesting. Word would spread about what happened today. Some students would dismiss it as luck. Others would transfer out of her class, rather than face the possibility that their superior abilities might not be enough. News of what happened in Commander Park's class spread through the academy faster than light-speed communications. By evening, everyone knew that the human instructor had defeated two of the strongest students using nothing but basic fighting techniques. The reactions were mixed. In the faculty lounge, Professor Rexmina paced back and forth on his 6 legs. The Keith-run tactical specialist was not pleased with what he was hearing. "This is embarrassing," he said to the gathered faculty. "Students are questioning the value of our advanced training methods. Some are even requesting transfers to the humans primitive class." Dean Torvald's crystalline form flickered with concern. "Perhaps we are overreacting. Commander Park may have simply caught the students off guard. Once they adapt to her methods, normal order will return." "Normal order," Rexmina repeated. "Dean, with respect, there is nothing normal about what happened. A human female using no technology defeated elite warriors from 2 of our most militarily advanced species. This makes our entire curriculum look inadequate." Dr. Kelmax, whose floating brain pulsed with agitation, joined the conversation. "The students are asking difficult questions. They want to know why their advanced training did not prepare them for such basic attacks. Some are even suggesting that our methods might be incomplete." "Incomplete." Rexmina's voice carried barely controlled anger. "Our methods represent thousands of years of military evolution. We have perfected warfare to a science. What this human demonstrated was not skill, it was luck and surprise tactics." "Then prove it," said Dean Torvald quietly. The room fell silent. All eyes turned toward the dean's glowing form. "Excuse me," Rexmina asked. "If our methods are superior, demonstrate it. Challenge the human to a proper military exercise. Show the students that advanced training defeats primitive techniques when applied correctly." Rexmina's multiple arms moved in a gesture of agreement. "An excellent idea. I propose a formal training exercise. My advanced tactical class against her remaining students. Full combat simulation with real battlefield conditions." "How many students does she have left?" asked Dr. Kelmax. "Reports indicate that 15 transferred out after yesterday's demonstration," Dean Torvald replied. "She now has 5 students remaining." 5. Rexmina's laugh sounded like grinding metal. "I have 40 students in my advanced class, all equipped with the latest in galactic military technology. 5 primitive students cannot possibly compete." "What parameters do you suggest?" the dean asked. "Urban warfare simulation, multiple objectives, standard galactic rules of engagement, full technological support for both sides." Rexmina paused, his expression growing more confident. "Actually, let me be generous. I will allow the human to choose the specific scenario parameters. That way there can be no complaints about fairness." Dean Torvald considered this. The Academy's reputation was at stake. If word spread that their elite training methods were inferior to primitive human techniques, it could damage their standing throughout the galaxy. "Very well. I will present this challenge to Commander Park tomorrow." The next morning, Una arrived at her classroom to find only 5 students waiting. Morcus, Quindar, Kira, Zexera, and surprisingly a human student she had not seen before. "I am Jinho Kim," the young man said, standing at attention. "I requested transfer from Professor Kelmax's theoretical combat class. I want to learn practical, fighting from someone who knows how humans really fight." "Welcome, Jinho," Una said. "I hope you are prepared to work harder than you ever have before." "Yes, ma'am." As class began, Dean Torvald appeared in the doorway with Professor Rexmina. Both aliens looked serious. "Commander Park," the dean said, "we have a proposal for you." Una listened as they explained the challenge. Rexmina's 40 advanced students against her 5. Full combat simulation with battlefield conditions. The winner would prove which training method was superior. "Interesting," Una said when they finished. "What are the stakes?" "If you lose," Rexmina said with obvious satisfaction, "you agree to modify your teaching methods to match Academy standards. No more primitive training techniques. And if I win, you will have proven your point," Dean Torvald replied. "But Commander, you must understand the odds. Professor Rexmina's students are equipped with the most advanced military technology in the galaxy. They have trained extensively in coordinated tactical operations. Yuna looked at her 5 students. They stared back with expressions ranging from excitement to terror. "What do you think?" she asked them. "It is impossible," Zexara said honestly. 40 against 5 with superior equipment. We cannot win through conventional tactics. "Good thing we will not be using conventional tactics," Yuna replied. She turned back to the faculty members. "I accept your challenge. When do we begin?" "Tomorrow, at 1400 hours, Rexmina said. The main combat simulator will be configured for urban warfare, multiple objective points, civilian populations, and environmental hazards. One condition, Yuna said. I choose the specific urban environment. Rexmina looked surprised but nodded. Agreed. What setting do you want? A human city. Specifically, a recreation of Seoul, South Korea. Earth year 2157, any particular reason? The dean asked. Yuna smiled. Humans know how to fight in human cities. After the faculty left, her students gathered around her with worried expressions. Commander, Quindar said, his energy form flickering nervously, I have calculated the probability of our success. Even accounting for the advantages of your training methods, we have less than a 12% chance of victory. Calculations assume that both sides will fight according to established patterns. Yuna replied. What if we do not fight the way they expect? You mean guerrilla tactics, Jinho said, understanding immediately. I mean we fight like humans, Yuna corrected. Morkes, your people can phase through matter, but can you phase through energy? Fields? No, but I do not understand the relevance. Kira, your crystalline structure can deflect energy weapons. Can it also reflect them? The young Veltari looked thoughtful. Theoretically, yes, but that would require precise control of my molecular alignment. Zexara, you are strong and fast, but more importantly, you can think quickly under pressure. That makes you valuable for close-quarters combat in confined spaces. Quindar, your energy form can interface with electronic systems. Can you disrupt them as well as control them? Yes, though doing so violates standard combat protocols. Jinho, you understand human psychology. More importantly, you understand how humans fight when everything else fails. Yuna looked around at her small team. Tomorrow, Professor Rexmina expects to fight 5 students using traditional tactics with primitive equipment. Instead, he will face something no galactic military has ever encountered. What is that? Morkes asked. Humans who have taught aliens to think like humans. The rest of the day was spent in intensive training. Yuna taught them techniques that had no names in any galactic military manual. How to use environment as a weapon, how to turn an enemy's advantages into weaknesses, how to fight dirty and win ugly. By evening, her students looked exhausted but determined. Remember, Yuna told them as they prepared to leave. Tomorrow they will have better weapons, better armor, and better technology, but we have something they do not. What is that? Zexara asked. We have learned to fight like we are already losing. They have only learned to fight like they expect to win. That night, word of the upcoming challenge spread throughout the academy. Students and faculty made plans to observe the exercise. Many expected it to be over quickly. They were right about one thing. It would be over quickly, just not the way anyone expected. The main combat simulator was packed with observers. Faculty members floated, walked, and phased into viewing positions around the arena. Students from every class had come to watch what many were calling the challenge of the century. The simulator had been configured to recreate a section of Seoul from Earth's past. 20-story buildings lined narrow streets. Market areas with countless hiding spots filled the lower levels. Underground tunnels connected different districts. It was a maze of concrete, steel, and shadows. Professor Rexmina stood in the command center, surrounded by holographic displays showing his 40 students. Each wore advanced combat armor and carried weapons that could level buildings. Their helmet displays showed detailed maps, enemy tracking systems, and tactical coordination networks. Remember, he told them through their communication system, this is a demonstration. We are proving that superior training and technology always defeat primitive methods. Follow standard galactic doctrine. Overwhelming force, coordinated attacks, and systematic area clearing. His students moved into position with military precision. They formed teams of 8, each group taking a different approach route toward the 5 objective points scattered throughout the city. In the opposite corner of the simulator, Yuna's 5 students prepared with much simpler equipment. Basic armor, projectile weapons, simple communication devices, and whatever they could carry. "How do we fight 40 enemies?" Kira asked nervously. "We do not fight 40 enemies," Yuna replied. "We fight 8 enemies 5 times, or better yet, we make them fight each other." "I do not understand," Morquez said. "You will. Remember what we practiced. Do not engage directly unless you have no choice. Use the environment. Make them angry. Angry soldiers make mistakes." The simulation began with a loud buzzer. Immediately, Rexmina's forces began their advance. Their tactical displays showed the 5 defenders as red dots moving through the city. What the displays did not show was that those dots were not the actual defenders. Yuna had taught her students the first rule of human warfare: never be where the enemy expects you to be. While Rexmina's forces moved toward the false signals created by Quindar's electronic interference, the real defenders had already taken positions throughout the city, not in the obvious defensive locations but in places that made no tactical sense according to galactic military doctrine. The first team of 8 advanced down a main street, weapons ready, sensors scanning for enemies. Their leader, a Kethrun sergeant named Telvok, felt confident. 8 elite soldiers with advanced equipment against 1 or 2 defenders. Simple mathematics. The explosion came from above. Jinho had rigged a crude bomb in a building's upper floor. Not sophisticated, just chemicals mixed in the right proportions. When the team passed below, he triggered it remotely. The building did not collapse, but chunks of concrete rained down on the street. The explosion created a cloud of dust and smoke that blinded their sensors. In the confusion, Zixara struck from a side alley. Moving faster than their tracking systems could follow, she disabled 2 soldiers with precise strikes to weak points in their armor. Before the others could react, she had vanished back into the maze of buildings. Team 1 taking casualties, Telvok reported. Enemy using unconventional tactics. Maintain formation, Rexmina ordered. Follow standard response protocols. But there were no standard protocols for what happened next. As Team 1 tried to regroup, Morquez phased through the wall behind them. Instead of attacking directly, he grabbed their communication equipment and phased back through the wall, taking their coordination systems with him. Suddenly isolated and partially blinded, the remaining 6 soldiers found themselves facing an enemy they could not predict or track. Team 2 encountered a different problem. As they moved through a market area, Kira had positioned herself in a building's upper level. Her crystalline body, precisely aligned, turned her into a living mirror. When they fired their energy weapons at shadows, the beams reflected off her surface and struck their own forces. 2 soldiers went down to their own weapons fire. Team 3 walked into what appeared to be an empty street. The pavement exploded under their feet, not from bombs but from Quindar, who had interfaced with the city's utility systems. Water pipes burst, electrical systems overloaded, and gas mains ruptured. In seconds, the street became an environment, so chaotic that their advanced sensors could not function. By the 5-minute mark, Rexmina's 40-soldier force had been reduced to 32 effective combatants, scattered across the city in small, confused groups. "What is happening out there?" Dean Torval asked from the observation deck. "They are not fighting according to any known tactical doctrine," Dr. Kelmax observed. "This appears to be completely random." "It is not random," said a quiet voice behind them. They turned to see Commander Park standing in the observation area. She was not in the simulation. Her students were fighting alone. "Then what is it?" Rexmina demanded, sweat beading on his scaled forehead. "It is asymmetric warfare," Yuna replied calmly. "My students are not trying to defeat 40 soldiers in open combat. They are trying to make 40 soldiers defeat themselves." On the displays, Team 4 had just discovered that their objective point was booby-trapped. Not with advanced explosives, but with simple mechanical devices that triggered when approached. swinging logs, pit traps, and tripwires that would not register on their sophisticated detection equipment. 3 more soldiers down. Team 5 found themselves being herded through the city by carefully placed explosions and obstacles. They thought they were pursuing enemies, but they were actually being led into a kill zone where all the remaining defenders waited. The ambush was perfect. 5 soldiers caught in a crossfire from positions they had not even considered. Advanced armor meant nothing when attacked from 6 directions simultaneously by enemies who had studied the weak points. Impossible, Rex Mina whispered as 5 more of his students fell. 8 minutes into the exercise, his 40 elite soldiers had been reduced to 20 scattered individuals who had lost communication with each other and could not coordinate their superior firepower. But the real shock came when Una herself entered the simulation. "What is she doing?" Dean Torval asked. "Instructors are not supposed to participate directly." "I am evening the odds," Una said as her image appeared on the tactical displays. The remaining 20 soldiers saw a single human female enter their operational area. Many smiled with relief. Finally, a target they could engage with conventional tactics. They were wrong. Una moved through the simulated city like a ghost. She did not carry advanced weapons or wear powered armor. Instead, she used the environment itself as her arsenal. A soldier would round a corner to find a tripwire that sent him tumbling into a pit filled with sharp sticks. Another would enter a building only to have the staircase collapse under carefully placed charges. She used psychological warfare as much as physical attacks. Sounds in the dark that made soldiers turn toward empty shadows while she struck from behind. Fake bodies positioned to look like casualties, causing enemies to approach carelessly. Most effective of all, she used their own training against them. Galactic soldiers were taught to fight in coordinated units with technological support. When isolated and confused, they fell back on standard responses that became predictable. Una had studied those standard responses for months. By the 10-minute mark, chaos reigned throughout the simulated city. Soldiers fired at shadows while real enemies struck from unexpected angles. Coordination had broken down completely. Several soldiers were shooting at their own forces, mistaking them for enemies in the dust and smoke. "Exercise terminated," Dean Torval announced suddenly. "What?" Rex Mina spun toward him. "Why are you stopping it?" "Because your soldiers are beginning to show stress reactions. Several are experiencing what humans call combat shock. On the displays, it was clear that something had gone very wrong. Elite soldiers, beings trained from birth for warfare, were huddled in corners or firing wildly at nothing. Some were not responding to direct orders." "Impossible," Rex Mina repeated. "These are the finest warriors in the galaxy." "Yes," Una said quietly. "The finest warriors in the galaxy, who have never faced an enemy that fights like it has already, lost everything." The simulation shut down. Medical teams entered to check on the affected soldiers. Most would recover quickly, but a few needed psychological counseling. In 10 minutes, 5 students and 1 instructor had defeated 40 elite soldiers, equipped with the most advanced military technology in known space. They had done it using methods that were older than most civilizations. The observation deck was silent. Faculty members stared at the displays showing casualty reports and tactical analysis. The numbers did not make sense according to everything they knew about military. "Science, how?" Dean Torval asked finally. Una looked around at the assembled aliens, teachers and administrators from the most advanced civilizations in the galaxy, all staring at her with expressions of complete bewilderment. "You have been studying warfare as if it were a science," she said. "Rules and formulas and predictable outcomes. But humans learned warfare as an art. We fight with creativity, desperation, and the absolute conviction that the enemy wants to kill everything we care about." She gestured toward the simulator. "Your soldiers are warriors." The emergency faculty meeting was called for that same evening. Every department head, senior instructor, and administrative officer crowded into the main conference room. The atmosphere was tense with confusion and barely controlled panic. Dean Torval's crystalline form flickered with agitation as he addressed the gathering. "In 30 years of running this academy, I have never witnessed anything like what happened today. Our most advanced students, equipped with superior technology and extensive training, were completely defeated by primitive human tactics. Professor Rexmina sat slumped in his chair, his multiple arms hanging limp. The defeat of his elite class had shaken him deeply. It makes no sense, he kept repeating. We had every advantage. Superior numbers, advanced weapons, tactical coordination systems. How could 5 students using basic equipment achieve such a result? Dr. Kelmax's brain pulsed with rapid thoughts. The psychological impact on our students has been severe. 12 of Rexmina's class are requesting immediate psychological counseling. They claim they cannot understand what happened to them. What exactly did happen to them? Asked Professor Navarra, the head of strategic studies. I have reviewed the tactical recordings multiple times. The human methods appear chaotic and random. They appear random because you are analyzing them using galactic military doctrine, said a calm voice from the back of the room. All heads turned toward Commander Park, who had been sitting quietly in the corner. Her presence made several faculty members uncomfortable. The small human woman had just proven that everything they thought they knew about warfare was incomplete. Explain, Dean Torval said simply. Una stood and walked to the center of the room. Around her, dozens of alien eyes watched with newfound respect and wariness. Your military sciences are based on the assumption that all combatants think logically, she began. You create weapons and tactics to defeat enemies who fight according to predictable patterns. Your training teaches students to win through superior technology and coordinated strategy. Those methods have proven successful for thousands of years. Rexmina protested weakly. Against enemies like yourselves, Una agreed. But humans did not develop military doctrine by fighting other advanced civilizations. We learned to fight by surviving on a world that was actively trying to kill us. She gestured toward the wall display, which showed images from Earth. Storms that could destroy cities, predators with claws and teeth, diseases that could wipe out entire populations. Every other species in this academy evolved on worlds where they became the dominant life, formed through intelligence, technology, or special abilities, Una continued. Humans became dominant through stubbornness and the ability to survive anything. Dr. Kelmax's brain flickered brighter. Are you suggesting that your species developed differently than others? Not differently, under different pressures. Most of your species had natural advantages. The Kethron can phase through matter. The Veltari have energy resistance. The Drexnari have incredible strength. Humans have none of these gifts. The room was completely silent now. Every faculty member was listening intently. So how did humans survive? Dean Torval asked. By learning to fight opponents who were bigger, stronger, and more dangerous than we were. By never giving up, even when victory seemed impossible. By using everything around us as a weapon, and every enemy weakness as an opportunity. Una activated the wall display, showing footage from Earth's history. Ancient humans hunting massive predators with simple tools. Armies defeating larger forces through superior tactics and determination. Individuals surviving in environments that should have killed them. Your students learned to fight enemies they could defeat, she said. Humans learn to fight enemies that should defeat them. There is a fundamental difference in mindset. Professor Navarra leaned forward. But surely advanced technology makes these primitive methods obsolete. Does it? Una asked. What happens when your advanced technology fails? When your coordination systems are disrupted? When your superior numbers are turned against you through confusion and misdirection? Technology does not fail at our level of advancement, Dr. Kelmax insisted. Technology always fails eventually, Una replied. The question is whether you can still fight when it does. Your students today discovered they could not. She changed the display to show tactical analysis from the simulation. Numbers and graphs that painted a clear picture of how the battle had unfolded. Your forces followed standard galactic doctrine perfectly, she explained. Overwhelming force, coordinated attack, systematic area control. Against an enemy using similar methods, you would have achieved total victory in minutes. But we did not use similar methods, Rexmina said, beginning to understand. Exactly. My students did not try to defeat 40 soldiers. Instead, they created conditions where those 40 soldiers could not use their advantages effectively. When you cannot coordinate, superior numbers become a disadvantage. When your sensors are blind, advanced weapons become useless. When you cannot predict enemy actions, all your tactical training fails. Dean Torval's form pulsed with realization. You are saying that human warfare is fundamentally different from galactic warfare. Human warfare assumes that everything that can go wrong will go wrong. Una confirmed. We plan for equipment failure, communication breakdowns, and fighting, alone against superior enemies. Your warfare assumes that technology and coordination will work perfectly. But they do work perfectly, Professor Navarra protested. Our systems have redundancies and fail-safes. And when those fail-safes fail? Una asked. When someone finds a way to turn your redundancies against you? What then? The room fell silent again as the implications sank in. Dr. Kelmax spoke first. You are suggesting that our entire military doctrine has a fundamental weakness. Not a weakness, Una corrected. An assumption. You assume that all enemies will fight according to the same rules you follow. But what if they do not? She changed the display again, showing star maps of known space. Your civilizations developed military science by fighting each other. Similar technologies, similar tactics, similar thinking. You have perfected warfare between equals. And humans? Dean Torval asked quietly. Humans developed military science by fighting everything. Animals that hunted us for food, diseases that killed without warning, natural disasters that destroyed our cities, other humans who wanted our resources. We never had the luxury of assuming the enemy would fight fair. Professor Rexmina looked up from his slumped position. So when your students faced my class today, they faced an enemy type they had trained for their entire lives, Una finished. A superior force using predictable tactics and advanced technology. From a human perspective, that is actually an easier fight than what we grew up with. How is fighting superior technology easier? Dr. Kelmax demanded. Because technology follows rules. Animals and natural disasters do not. A quantum disruptor weapon will always work the same way. A hungry tiger will do whatever it takes to eat you, regardless of what your tactical manual says it should do. Una walked back toward her chair, but turned to address the room one final time. Your species learned warfare by fighting enemies you could understand and predict. Humans learned warfare by fighting enemies we could not understand, could not predict, and could not defeat through conventional means. We learned to win by being more stubborn, more creative, and more desperate than anything trying to kill us. And that is what you are teaching our students? Dean Torval asked. I am teaching them that there is always a way to win, even when logic says victory is impossible. I am teaching them that the most advanced weapon in the galaxy is a mind that refuses to accept defeat. As the meeting broke up, faculty members left in small groups, talking quietly among themselves. The confident superiority they had felt toward human methods was gone, replaced by a grudging respect and perhaps a little fear. If primitive human tactics could defeat the best they had to offer, what did that say about their civilization's preparedness for real warfare? More importantly, if humans could teach other species to think like humans, what would that mean for the balance of power in the galaxy? Dean Torval remained behind as the room emptied. Commander Park, he called as she reached the door. Yes, Dean? How many humans are there? Una smiled. Enough, Dean. Enough. As she left, Dean Torval stared at the tactical displays still showing the results of the day's exercise. Somewhere in the galaxy were billions of beings who thought like Commander Park, beings who had learned to win through determination and creativity rather than superior technology. For the first time in his long career, the dean of the most advanced military academy in known space felt genuinely worried about the future of galactic warfare. The humans had taught 5 students to think like survivors. What would happen when they taught entire armies? 3 months after the famous 10-minute battle, Nexus Prime Academy looked very different. The most obvious change was the long line of alien beings waiting outside Section C7 every morning. Students from across the galaxy had requested transfer to Commander Park's basic combat training class. The waiting list had grown to over 200 names, but Yuna still only accepted small classes. Teaching humans methods to aliens required personal attention and careful adaptation. Each species needed different approaches to learn the same fundamental concepts. The morning routine had also changed dramatically. What once was an empty, forgotten training facility now bustled with activity from dawn until late evening. Advanced students from other classes came to observe. Faculty members who had once mocked her methods now watched her sessions with careful attention. Yuna stood in the center of her training room, watching her current class of 8 students work through combat exercises. The group included both original survivors and new additions who had proven they could adapt to human thinking. Morcus moved through an obstacle course, his phasing ability now combined with tactical awareness that would have impressed any human drill sergeant. He no longer relied solely on his natural gifts, but used them as tools within a larger strategy of survival and adaptation. Kira practiced with Zexara, their different species' abilities creating combinations neither could have imagined alone. The crystalline being's energy deflection worked perfectly with the Drexnari warrior's aggressive close combat style. Quindar had perhaps changed the most. The energy being who once processed information at light speed had learned the value of intuition and improvisation. His tactical decisions now included factors that could not be calculated: human psychology, emotional reactions, and the power of doing something completely unexpected. Jinho worked with 2 new students, teaching them the urban combat techniques he had learned growing up on Earth. His experience as the only human in the original class made him valuable as a translator between human methods and alien understanding. Excellent progress, Yuna told them as the morning session ended. Remember, tomorrow we begin advanced survival training. The environment simulator has been programmed with conditions from 12 different death worlds. Including Earth? Asked a new student, a young Kethran named Tavek. Especially Earth, Yuna replied with a smile. As the students left, Dean Torval entered the training room. The crystalline being's usual formal demeanor seemed more relaxed than it had been months earlier. "Commander Park, do you have a moment?" "Of course, Dean." They walked to a quiet corner of the facility. Through the observation windows, they could see other classes in session throughout the academy. But even the most advanced training looked different now. Instructors incorporated elements of unpredictability and improvisation that had been absent before. "I wanted to inform you that the Academy Board has made a decision," Dean Torval said. "We are offering you a permanent position as Director of Unconventional Warfare Studies. The position comes with a significant increase in resources and the authority to redesign our entire basic combat curriculum." Yuna nodded thoughtfully. "I am honored by the offer, Dean, but I have conditions." "Name them." "First, my methods remain unchanged. No modifications to match galactic standards. Students learn human techniques as humans developed them." "Agreed." "Second, I want to establish an exchange program with Earth. Alien students study on our world for 6 months, learning to survive in humanity's original environment. In return, human instructors come here to teach advanced classes." Dean Torval's form flickered with interest. "That is a fascinating proposal. Learning in humanity's natural habitat would certainly provide insight into your species' development. Third, I want to create a specialized program for emergency situations. When standard military doctrine fails, when technology breaks down, when everything goes wrong, there should be officers who know how to keep fighting. A survival specialist program? More than that. A program that teaches beings to win when winning should be impossible." Dean Torval considered this. The events of 3 months ago had changed many perspectives throughout the academy. Reports of the human instructor's methods had spread to military organizations across the galaxy. Some had requested demonstrations. Others had sent observers to study her techniques. "There is something else," the dean said. "We have received communications from several galactic governments. They are interested in establishing similar programs within their own military academies." "Are they asking for human instructors?" "They are asking for you specifically, Commander Park." Your reputation has spread far beyond this academy. Yuna looked out at the students practicing in other rooms. Young beings from dozens of worlds, all learning to fight according to methods that had been tested in humanity's long struggle for survival. Dean, may I ask you a question? Certainly. Before humans arrived at this academy, when was the last time any galactic civilization faced a real war? Dean Torval was quiet for a long moment. Real war? Not border skirmishes or limited conflicts, but total warfare where entire civilizations were at risk. Yes. Perhaps 2,000 years. The Great War between the Veltari Coalition and the Kethron Empire. But that conflict was resolved through superior technology and coordinated strategy. And before that, much longer. Most advanced civilizations solved disputes through negotiation, economic pressure, or limited military demonstrations. Total warfare became obsolete as technology advanced. Yuna nodded. That is what I suspected. Your civilizations have forgotten how to fight for survival because you have not needed to for thousands of years. You think that is a weakness? I think it is a dangerous assumption. Somewhere in the galaxy, there might be species that never forgot how to fight dirty. Civilizations that never developed beyond the need for total war. Enemies who do not follow galactic conventions. Dean Torval's crystalline structure darkened, slightly. Are you suggesting that humanity's methods are preparation for such encounters? I am suggesting that humans never forgot how to fight like everything we care about is at stake, because for most of our history it was. They stood in comfortable silence, watching alien students learn human techniques. The sight would have been impossible to imagine just months earlier. Dean, Yuna said finally, I accept your offer. But I have one additional request. Yes? Send a message to Earth. Tell them that the galaxy's military academies want to learn our methods. Tell them that other species are beginning to understand why humans never give up. What do you expect Earth's response to be? Yuna smiled. Probably something like, about time they figured it out. As Dean Torval left, Yuna returned to her work. There were lesson plans to prepare, new training scenarios to design, and correspondence from across the galaxy to answer. But first, she activated a communication terminal and opened a channel to Earth. Command, this is Commander Park at Nexus Prime Academy, she said when the connection established. I need to submit a request for additional personnel. We are going to need more. Instructors, how many more? Came the reply from Earth. Yuna looked at the list of requests on her desk. Applications from military academies on 47 different worlds, all wanting to learn what humans had to teach. All of them, she said. We are going to need all of them. 6 months later, the first class of the Academy's new survival warfare program graduated. 24 students from 16 different species, all trained to think like humans when everything went wrong. They dispersed to military commands throughout the galaxy, carrying with them knowledge that had been forged in humanity's long struggle to survive against impossible odds. The real test came 2 years later. A distress signal reached the Academy from the Outer Rim territories. An unknown enemy force had attacked 3 colony worlds using tactics that seemed to ignore all known military doctrine. Standard galactic defense forces had been completely overwhelmed. The enemy appeared from nowhere, used no recognizable technology, and seemed to anticipate every defensive strategy. Worse, they showed no interest in negotiation or surrender. They fought with a determination that reminded observers of something they had heard about but never experienced. They fought like they were already losing everything. The Galactic Defense Council's response was swift but predictable. They assembled their most advanced fleet, equipped with the latest technology and staffed by officers trained in the finest military academies in known space. The fleet was destroyed in 6 hours. The second fleet lasted 4 hours. By the time the third fleet was being assembled, panic had spread throughout galactic civilization. An enemy that could not be reasoned with, could not be predicted, and could not be defeated through conventional means was systematically destroying everything in its path. That was when someone remembered the human instructor at Nexus Prime Academy. Commander Park, Dean Torval's voice carried desperate urgency as he contacted her emergency channel. "We need your help. We need your students." "I know," Una replied calmly. "I have been monitoring the situation. How many ships do you have left?" The 4th Defense Fleet consists of 200 vessels from 37 worlds. It represents the largest military force assembled in galactic history. And you want to send it to face an enemy that destroyed your previous fleets.